I'm Dave.
And I'm Andrew, and we are the IB English guys. Today we're going to look at video 4 of 20 as part of our Paper 1 review course. Countdown to Paper 1. Giles, what are we going to talk about today?
Today we're going to look at a response to a website. We looked at the website in the last video where we talked about all the different website features, and we gave you some terminology in the website toolbox, and now we're going to look at a good response. Let's talk about the guiding question and get into this.
Sure. The guiding question for the website was as follows. How do the text creators use layout and website features to create a call to action and promote its mission? Pretty dense guiding question, Giles. What do we need to think about?
Yeah, so our technical and formal element that we're going to look at is, again, layout and website features. So we're going to get into that website toolbox, hopefully.
And in terms of the ideas, we want to consider the call to action and the mission or purpose of the actual organization. That's what we want to think about.
That's right. It's that companion animal network. And we want to think about the network and how they're trying to connect human beings and animals, and that this is their mission.
Shall we take a look at the thesis that our student came up with and then look at the outline? Let's do it.
That sounds good.
All right, the thesis statement that the student comes up with is as follows. Accordingly, through the clever use of layout and website features, CAN makes their message clear. Seniors live happier and healthier lives with their pets, and by enlisting the support of the general public, can make a difference and keep these loved ones together, ensuring a happy and full life for both humans and pets.
Okay, great. I love this. I think we've got, again, attention to the guiding question. We're talking about layout and website features, but we're also really understanding the main focus of the website to promote, a happy life for humans and their animals.
Yeah, we've got confidence with language as well with the can. I think this seems like a confident writer.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so the rudimentary outline, again, this is an ambitious plan, but we see that first, after the introduction, we're going to talk about that bond between human and pets and owners, but looking at the image and the logo as a website feature.
It looks like after that, the writer will move on and discuss sort of the separation between pets and seniors and how that is negative for both parties. And it looks like they're going to consider the structure of the website in that discussion.
That's right. And then we're going to move and talk about the work and the mission of CAN and what they're doing. And then after that, we're going to have a call to action where they're going to give very clear instructions for what people need to do.
It looks like after that, they'll go ahead and talk about the further learning, which is at the bottom of the website, of course, and then end with the conclusion. Mr. Giles, as I look at this outline, it just seems like they're going chronologically top to bottom of the website.
It looks like it to me. That this is probably how we would be reading the website, and this makes sense of how they're going to do that. So let's look at what this writer did to talk about this website.
Yeah, let's check it out.
First of all, I noticed that we're seeing a pattern here, that a lot of times the writers are starting with the idea that's embedded in the text and engaging with that idea before they get into answering the question.
Mr. Giles, this is a product of our class. This writer's starting with a hook, and we encourage our writers to start with a very short hook just to get us into the topic and wake up the examiner, more or less.
Yeah, right, and show some voice, and I like that. And again, this is connecting to how in older, sometimes older people, they have to abandon their pets, and this is important as they go into assisted living or living in a nursing home, those kinds of things.
Yeah, let's look at some really specific phrases, Mr. Giles, and really point these out. I really like how they aim primarily at Australian families. I think that's another way of identifying the target audience. Really clever that they've done that here. And then I think we talk about these words like informing and persuading. Those are getting at the purpose, Mr. Giles, of the purpose of the website. And I think those are really important to talk about, sort of those keywords like inform, entertain, persuade. We've got to have that in there along with the target audience.
If you're talking about specific things, we also notice that in the third line, we see a use of a question. But what happens when pets are involved? I love questions in writing because it just shows the writer is thinking.
The writer's thinking, and the writer's engaging the reader. They're making the reader think as well. Of course, they end with this thesis. They have the key language of the guiding question, layout and website features, and then they do have a rich idea. So this student is off and running.
Yeah, great handshake, good first impression, and a good introduction. The first body paragraph, the next paragraph is again focusing on image and logo, but notice that we have an idea, the strong bond between pet owners and their animals. That's nice.
And that's a good choice because they're going to talk about that cute photo. And I'm sorry, I'm a dog lover. I have a dog very similar to that dog, and they want to talk about that. And they talk about some really interesting visual analysis tools like focal point and gaze. We would use these for describing images. And if you look on our website, you'll see this type of language for our photograph section.
Yeah, and again, we're unpacking the logo. I think that's really smart. The logo is very intentionally designed, so we want to think about that. This is a big part of the top of on the header, so we're alluding to the logo and talking about the symbolism that logo has. So that's really nice. Next body paragraph.
Yeah, when we get in the next body paragraph, we understand that the idea they're going after is this notion of agony. And this idea that, when seniors are separated from their pets, that's very traumatic, not only for the senior, but for the animal as well. So this is the section of the response where they're going to talk about that, Mr. Giles.
Yeah, and part of the layout, when you look at layout, part of the layout is how it's structured. That's what they're asking us to think about. And so this is what the student is, again, paying attention to. That's really nice, talking about the subheading. And again, unpacking some of the content that's in that first section. That's what the writer's doing. I can see that.
I see the word subheading here, which is nice because that is a convention of this particular text type. So I'm happy to see that. The discussion of color, again, on that document, we talked about that with respect to font. So they do have some website features that they're breaking down now.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so then again, we notice that we're unpacking some of the language. We're quoting the text and we're in the text. I think that's really smart. Again, they're not asking us to analyze language directly, but we're including references to language. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong at all, because if you're going to talk about the structure, it makes sense to talk about the words that are part of that structure, because the structure together with the words really makes that impact on the reader.
They talk about the guiding question as your point of entry. Clearly, the website features is the point of entry for this student, so that's good.
Yeah.
So then we have the next body paragraph talking about the middle section of the website. They're very clearly showing us that they're walking through the text chronologically, but connecting to this sort of idea of the work that CAN is doing. Right?
Yeah, and that they're working hard to keep the pet owner and the pet together. So this is kind of where the writer will talk about the mission of CAN, right?
Yeah. And again, more sort of look at font color and looking at what's bolded and the questions that are being asked. And then finally, unpacking the second image, right, that we see in the text.
That's right. So they've looked at the second image. It is a bit repetitive in areas, Mr. Giles, I think, getting back to the coloring again. But I think overall the student is making a good attempt to break down both images, right? We see the gaze repeated again as well. But again, they're looking at two photos, so we might see some repetition of ideas.
That's right. Okay, moving along, we have the next part. We're again thinking about the website layout and again how that's structured, and inviting people to take action, that call to action that we talked about in the rudimentary outline.
Yeah, we see some things here now, like we see the orange hyperlinks. We talk about the imperative commands. Of course, these are typical for websites. We see the second person language where they're interacting directly with the viewer. So I think they are doing a good job paying attention to features here. We see that good orange and blue, so they have ample referencing and ample focus on that website reader relationship.
Yeah, they are really thinking about that mission, right?
They are.
The mission and purpose of the website, which is really what the
guiding question asked us to do.
That's right. And then finally, we have the final section, which is again that what we talked about, the sort of further learning that's being referred to, and again the links and the final slogan and some of the things that are included there in that footer and in the conclusion.
Well,
of the website.
Mr. Giles, that's the word footer might have been nice to include here. I think the response is strong, but there are areas where I think some more website specific features from our toolbox could be incorporated.
Yeah, maybe so. I think you're right. Again, I noticed that this is a long response.
This paper's long, Mr. Giles, and it makes me wonder, how quickly that student was motoring through this. And I think this is a pretty ambitious response.
Yeah, you're right. And so I think in the end, what we see here is we see a strong understanding of the text, really strong connection to mission. In terms of the analysis and evaluation, perhaps they could have talked about more specific website features. I think they do well, but we've kind of pinned this at a 4 out of 5 on that criteria.
Yeah, they have a lot of features, but again, it's that guiding question really asks them to dig into the website specific features. So I think, to get the top marks, I would have liked to have seen header, footer, some of those other terms.
A little more terminology in terms of that. Again, very strong, well-organized paper. At times a little bit repetitive, but again, we see a very clear focus on the guiding question. What about language?
I think the language is good, Mr. Giles, but it is wordy. I think at 1,400 words, the student has not maybe carefully chosen the language the way they wanted to, and the paper came out long. Again, this is about the upper limit of what we've seen our students write in terms of length during an assessment period. It is possible, but again, I think this paper is just a bit too long and a bit too wordy with respect to language.
Yeah, so it's still scored.
It's a good paper.
Scored a 7, but it's probably an 18 out of 20, and I think again it shows us a good, strong response.
Some shade of 7, Mr. Giles, but it's not perfect.
Yeah, that's right.
How could it be? It was written in a 1-hour exam period, 70-minute period.
So we hope that this gave you some ideas about how to write about a website. Also, remember there's some good terminology that we talked about in the previous video. Again, this is all about just trying to unpack that website and talk about the website and design features, and have some fun with writing about an online text.
Yeah, so folks, we hope that videos 1, 2, 3, and 4 have been helpful. Join us for 5 and 6, and we will look at another text type and continue preparing you for the Paper 1 exam. Thanks for joining, and take care.
Thanks, guys.